Welcome to Insights. I'm Adam Rivers.
And I'm Sarah Collins. In this episode, we'll reflect carefully on the Qur'an, verse by verse, focusing on wording, context, and coherence.
Yeah, and if you are joining us for the first time, our goal here on Insights is to help you grasp these really profound concepts without ever feeling, overwhelmed.
Right, because we want to take these incredible layered ideas and just unpack them so you can see exactly how they apply to your everyday life.
Exactly.
And so, in our last episode, we witnessed that profound moment where humanity's first mistake was met with divine words of forgiveness.
Yeah,
That beautiful moment of mercy really set the stage perfectly for what happens next.
it really did. So today we are focusing on verse 38 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which is the second chapter of the Quran.
Okay.
The translation of this verse reads, "We said, go down from it, all of you. And when guidance comes to you from me, whoever follows my guidance, there will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve."
So, just looking at the sequence of events there, it brings up a really simple but compelling question for you listening. Like, why would a command to go down, a directive that sounds a lot like an expulsion, immediately follow a moment of absolute, total forgiveness?
Right. It feels contradictory at first glance. But to understand this, we really have to recognize the immense cosmic scene being painted here.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just a historical recap of an event at the dawn of time. It is essentially the constitution for human life on Earth.
Wow.
Yeah, it establishes the foundational operating system of our existence. So look at the very first word in Arabic, qulna, which translates to "we said."
Right, which implies authority.
Exactly. It is
Okay.
a plural of absolute majesty from the Creator. It's an announcement that commands the attention of the entire universe, signaling a monumental transition. And then comes the command ibitu, or go down.
So, if total forgiveness was already granted, then going down to earth can't be like a prison sentence. Because that completely fractures the common narrative we often hear, where earth is essentially a cosmic timeout corner for bad behavior. I mean, if you are fully forgiven, you don't keep serving the sentence.
Exactly.
So this descent has to mean something fundamentally different than a demotion. If I had to give an analogy, I'd ask you to imagine leaving your childhood home where absolutely every meal was provided, your laundry was done, and, the concept of scarcity just didn't exist.
Yeah, it's a totally frictionless environment.
Right, and then suddenly you step out into the real world where you have to pay rent, you have to farm your own food and build your own shelter. It sounds like a harsh punishment, but it's actually just growing up.
That is the pivotal realization right there. And here is where it gets really fascinating. The linguistic root of the word ibitu doesn't just mean a physical drop in location.
Okay.
It actually represents an existential shift from a realm of zero effort into a world governed by causality, by toil, and the huge responsibility of free choice.
Wait, so you're telling me this descent wasn't a punishment for a mistake, but actually an evolution into responsibility?
I am confirming exactly that.
Okay.
In the previous state, humanity was in a realm of absolute care. There was no friction, but, a realm without friction is also a realm without growth.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
You are stepping into an arena where your actions now have direct, undeniable consequences. You actually have to plant the seeds to get the harvest.
So it sounds less like a penalty and much more like a promotion, really, like taking a ship out of a safe harbor and putting it onto the open ocean. The harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for.
Exactly. It's the beginning of humanity's true assignment.
So if we are all stepping into this arena of cause and effect, who exactly is making this jump? The verse says, go down from it, all of you. Does all of you just mean the first two human beings, or is the scope wider?
Well, what does the word all truly encompass when the universe is watching?
I imagine it's pretty expansive.
It is. The Revelation uses the words minya, meaning from that starting point of perfect peace, and jamian, which translates to all of you. And this is crucial. Jamian encompasses the entirety of humanity, past, present, and future, conceptually contained in that moment.
Oh.
Yeah. It also includes the dynamic forces that will interact on the earthly stage, like the friction, the challenges, the opposing forces of good and evil.
That's a huge conceptual shift.
It is, because it establishes that humanity shares a collective, interconnected destiny. It completely cancels out the idea of isolated individual salvation. You can't just retreat to a mountaintop, ignore the suffering of your neighbor, and save yourself. We are all partners in this descent.
Right, so we share the arena, we share the resources, and we have to practice human solidarity, but that creates a massive vulnerability.
No, so.
Well, now that humanity is down here facing the struggles of Earth, navigating this labyrinth of cause and effect, how are we supposed to survive the chaos? I mean, relying purely on trial and error seems like a recipe for civilizational collapse.
Well, think about it this way. If you were sending a team into a dark, complex labyrinth, wouldn't you provide them with a map?
Of course, you'd have to.
The Creator doesn't just leave humanity to wander blindly. The verse continues with the phrase فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ, which means, and when guidance comes to you.
Okay.
The grammar used here is remarkable. It combines conditional particles with really heavy, emphatic linguistic structure. It represents an absolute, undeniable certainty. God guarantees this lifeline will arrive.
It's like a manufacturer providing an unalterable, perfectly timed instruction manual for a highly complex machine.
Exactly. And the verse explicitly says many, which means from me. This origin point is exclusive and incredibly profound. Human-made systems will always be flawed, relative, and biased.
Because we're designing them from inside the system.
Right. We are influenced by our biology, our shifting desires, our temporary political interests. Only the Creator, existing outside of the system, fully knows human weaknesses and strengths.
Hold on, are you saying that any philosophical system we invent entirely on our own is inherently biased because we literally can't see our own blind spot?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You cannot perfectly calibrate a scale if you were standing on it. When a specific class or culture designs a system, it will always favor its own survival.
Wow.
So divine guidance is the absolute light and the only objective standard immune to the fluctuating illusions of history.
So if human systems fall short, what exactly does this divine guidance look like in our daily lives? Is it just a dry list of do's and don'ts?
Well, is guidance just a list of rules, or is it something far deeper? The linguistic root of the Arabic word used here for guidance, HDY, implies a gentle, clear illumination.
Okay, so it's a completely different paradigm.
It is. It's a complete value system specifically designed to answer the massive existential questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going?
Right, the questions that keep people up at night.
Exactly. It provides a conceptual lens that allows the mind to see past deceptive appearances by pondering both the revelation and the universe.
Okay, so the guidance is absolute and it's available, but how do we interact with it? Like, is just knowing it enough?
Let me ask you this. If you hold the perfect map in your hands, but you never take a single step, are you truly guided?
No, you're just standing there holding a piece of paper.
Exactly. The verse establishes the condition, fe man tabia, which means whoever follows. This is the ultimate guarantee of human free will. There is absolutely no compulsion here.
So you can have the map and just decide to walk into a wall.
You can. The choice to align your life with it is entirely yours. And following doesn't just mean passive intellectual agreement. It means active, practical application in everyday life.
Right, so it's the difference between buying a gym membership and actually lifting the weights. You can memorize the biomechanics of fitness, but if you don't actually do the work, your body won't change. Real transformation requires action.
Yes, active application in your relationships, your resource management, establishing justice. And here is where the friction gets intense. Truly following this guidance requires intense mental alertness to actively reject blind traditions.
What do you mean by blind traditions?
Well, many societies practice mechanized rituals that have been completely stripped of their spiritual meaning. People elevate human accumulations, like cultural habits or ancestral norms, and treat them as if they are sacred.
Wait, so following his guidance might actually mean actively rebelling against your own culture or ancestral habits if they contradict the truth.
It absolutely might. The revelation constantly demands that you take every single habit, every societal expectation, and weigh it meticulously on the scale of divine guidance. You cannot just accept a practice because that's how our parents did it. You have to reject blind imitation.
That requires a terrifying level of bravery. So if we take this active step, if we stay intellectually awake and weigh our lives against the revelation, what is the ultimate payoff for the human mind?
To understand the payoff, ask yourself, what are the two specific emotions that account for almost every psychological illness known to humanity?
Anxiety and depression.
Yes, fear and grief. The revelation outlines the ultimate reward. There will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve.
Wow.
Fear is an anxiety tied exclusively to the future. The fear of poverty, failure, death. Grief is a depression tied exclusively to the past. Missed chances, lost loved ones. Modern humanity is absolutely drowning in these two states despite our material progress.
That is so true. I mean, think about the anxiety that keeps you up at 3 a.m. worrying about your career or the economy, or that heavy depression over a past mistake that just physically robs you of today's joy. So how does the guidance cure that?
It cures fear by fundamentally shifting our worldview.
Yeah.
When you follow the revelation, you realize the universe isn't a chaotic void. It runs on precise, divine laws. You work incredibly hard, you engage with causality, but you completely sever your emotional dependence on the final outcome. You leave the ultimate result entirely to the Creator, which completely eliminates paralyzing anxiety.
Wait, so we still strive and put in maximum effort, but we completely decouple our peace of mind from the final outcome.
Yes, exactly. You do the work, but the result belongs to God.
That is revolutionary for the modern psyche. We're
Yeah.
so tied to outcomes. And what about grief? How does it cure the past?
It cures grief by reframing reality. Earth is just a testing ground. Losses are not meaningless cruelties. They elevate the soul and build resilience. Past mistakes become profound lessons. And sincere repentance completely washes away the past, freeing the soul from historical guilt.
The psychological framing there is incredible. To know a past mistake doesn't define your permanent identity. But how does the actual phrasing of the verse cement this feeling of total security?
Well, why would the revelation use two completely different grammatical structures for fear and grief in the exact same sentence?
I don't know, to emphasize different things.
Exactly. The linguistic mastery here is brilliant. No fear is constructed as a nominal sentence in Arabic, which indicates permanent, unchanging stability. It builds an impenetrable fortress against future anxieties.
Okay, and the other half?
Nor will they grieve is a verbal sentence, which indicates a continuous renewal of action. Life on earth will always have new trials, so the defense against grief is an actively renewing comfort that activates whenever a new sad event occurs.
That maps onto the human experience flawlessly. Because fear is negated first, and we definitely obsess over tomorrow's economy far more than we cry over yesterday's spilled milk. Addressing fear first provides the stability needed to process past grief.
Precisely. And this incredible coherence echoes across the entire Quran. For instance, in Surah Taha, the absence of fear and grief is linked to the phrase, will not go astray and will not suffer. It's a warning that turning away brings a suffocating life, regardless of material wealth.
Are you saying someone can live a completely suffocating, miserable life even if they are a billionaire, purely because they turned away from this internal compass?
I am. If you reject the guidance, you rely on your flawed ego. Your mind goes astray, and your soul suffers the friction of a life devoid of ultimate purpose. In Surah Al-Araf, following guidance translates to internal piety and external reform. Earth is not a lonely exile. It's a field for moral elevation and stewardship.
So, if this is a universal law of human psychology, do we see it playing out on a macro scale throughout human history? Like, does this apply to entire civilizations?
Well, what happens to empires that worship their own egos instead of following divine guidance? History is the laboratory where this is proven. Eras of genuine justice and civilization align perfectly with following the core values of this guidance.
No, the opposite.
Eras of decline, brutal oppression, and war stem directly from ego, power lust, and turning away from the divine compass.
It's impossible not to relate that to our modern worldview. The collective challenges we face today, inequality, burnout, they can't be solved by escaping reality or using material painkillers.
Right.
I mean, new technology or consumer goods just increase our spiritual emptiness because they don't fix the corrupted operating system.
Which leads us to the ultimate paradox of religion. In the modern secular view, religion is often seen as a set of suffocating restrictions. But the reality is the exact opposite. True religion is the ultimate liberation.
How so?
It frees humans from the slavery of things, the slavery of people's opinions, and the slavery of our own destructive desires.
Wait, so by fully submitting to God, you are actually becoming completely untethered and free from the opinions and control of society.
Yes, when you bow to the one true standard, you stand completely upright before everything else. But it requires continuous self-reflection. You have to constantly ask yourself if you are following divine guidance or just blindly following a cultural habit disguised as religion.
That active daily practice of realigning your compass is so crucial. So what does life actually look like for an individual and a society that manages to reach this state?
Can you imagine a community where absolutely no one fears their neighbor?
That sounds like a utopia.
It's the final state of inner peace. When a person's will aligns with the divine, mundane, worldly work becomes an act of worship. Friction and tests become stepping stones for growth. And there is immense optimism.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no despair in the Qur'an. Every moment is a fresh chance to choose guidance.
The beauty of a society built on that is just magnificent. A community that is merciful, just, and free from toxic conflict, constantly looking toward the future rather than drowning in the past.
Exactly, and that is why verse 38 is a beacon in the long night of human confusion. It tells us who we are, why we are here, and how to be saved. Following guidance isn't just one option among many. It is the absolute only choice that guarantees our humanity and the serenity we are all searching for.
Thank you so much for breaking down these massive concepts with such clarity. I mean, to bring all of these vital insights together for you, listening humanity's descent to Earth was an evolution into responsibility, not a mere punishment. We are fully equipped with an infallible divine compass. And by actively following this guidance, we completely eradicate paralyzing fear of the future and suffocating grief over the past, achieving ultimate inner peace and true freedom.
Beautifully said.
So, as you go about your day, I want to leave you with this question to ponder. If true freedom is found in surrendering your anxieties about the future to the Creator, what is one fear you are holding on to right now that you could release today?
That's a great question.
That's it for this episode of Insights. If you found this reflection helpful, follow the show and join us next time as we continue verse by verse in the Quran. Until then, take one idea from this verse into your day.